se o silêncio dissesse tudo, sentimento bom que me leva pro outro mundo. A vontade de te ver já é maior que tudo. Não existem distâncias no meu novo mundo, tipo coisas da sétima.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Clint from One World Jiu-Jitsu over here, that Bay Area Jiu-Jitsu black belt, telling you how Jiu-Jitsu made my life better. That sounds like a good opening tagline. I'm working on it. We could work on it together. Real quick, I wanted to thank Want vs. Need, wanted to thank Bronze Humanity, and I wanted to thank each and every one of you for listening each and every week. It's been a weird few months this last, I want to say 8 weeks, 12 weeks. Had a lot of changes in my life, right? So it turns out I'm type 1 diabetic. Went over that in my last podcast that I had on here with Alagura from Want vs. Need. And it's been, interesting transition, getting back in shape, putting the weight back on, putting the muscle mass back on, being able to really get out there and train and give it 100%. I don't know how much everybody out there knows about diabetes, type 1, type 2, all that stuff. Basically, type 2 diabetes is, it's related to your diet, right? If you don't exercise, if you eat a lot of sugar, a lot of carbs, you can be susceptible to that and wind up on insulin, right? Then type 1 diabetes it's hereditary, right? Your parents had it. My father, he was diabetic, type 1. You're born with it. That's it. So for me, I have to take insulin now, and I have to really, watch carbs, like count carbs, like be very, very vigilant about that sugar, all that stuff. But, I feel fine. I was already kind of doing that before, but now it's just, I take it as an opportunity to sort of be like hyper vigilant on my diet and to really be the best version of myself, to not have any excuses and to not, just take shortcuts or, take days off and stuff like that. So to me, I look at it as an opportunity to make my life better and to sort of be the best version of myself. So what I can say is going all summer not knowing that I had this disease, that I had this, I don't know if you call it disease, that I basically am diabetic. Not knowing, I was just tired for, every single day, lethargic, having to get up and go to the gym. I had to take a bunch of pre-workout, a bunch of caffeine, but I'm a jiu-jitsu instructor. I'm a black belt instructor over at One World Jiu-Jitsu and AKA Sunnyvale. I have an obligation to my students. To me, on top of sharing my knowledge of jiu-jitsu, I feel that when someone comes to my class, they should leave the class feeling better, feeling like they learned something, feeling like their day is better. So for me, having that purpose, no matter how tired I was or how shitty I felt, it gave me that motivation to get up and to work. Health-wise, I don't know what people know about what, diabetes type 1 is, like I said earlier, but basically my blood sugar wanted to be like very high. My body's unable to break down carbohydrate, sugar, without basically taking, medicine, taking insulin, the shots every, a couple times a day. So the only way that my blood sugar was going down naturally was through exercise. So if I didn't have jiu-jitsu in my life, there's a good chance I wouldn't be here anymore, right? Your blood sugar can only go so high before, things like having a stroke and just dying, not waking up happen in your sleep. So, some people say jiu-jitsu saved my life metaphorically, and, I say it literally, figuratively, metaphorically, the whole thing. If it wasn't for jiu-jitsu and the training, I would not be here right now. There's a very good chance. After every doctor I've talked to, they said basically that I have been so on top of diet, so on top of training, so on top of health and fitness my whole life. It's basically the thing that kept me going and kept me strong throughout this whole process, that I was able to get in there and, basically get it all under control. So I just saw I have an endocrinologist, and that's it's a really big word. Let me see if I can break it down, Urban Dictionary, that shit for you guys. What is an endocrinologist, right? Basically it's the doctors that deal with things like your thyroid, your pituitary gland, your adrenals, that sort of thing. Basically your hormones, right? And, that's who you need to see if you're a new diabetic or whatever, if you have diabetes. So, kind of oversharing. But that's where I was. That's why I wasn't, doing too many of these shows. I was just, so sick. I'm just trying to get through, day to day and make the best of it and come back stronger, bigger, better, faster than ever. So I'm coming back to competition. I am doing the U.S. Open on November 5th at the Cow Palace in, I think it's South San Francisco. It's an iconic venue, and I'm very excited, very stoked to be able to compete in a place like that. No Gi Worlds is there as well, but for me, U.S. Open, Gi Tournament, Black Belt, Master 1, Super Heavyweight Division, making my return, and I'm pretty stoked about that. So I'd say I'm planning to compete, but I'm actually planning to go and win. So I'm going to do that. It's going to be great. This episode of the podcast, basically, I appeared on another show called the MMA Dude Bro Podcast with Kenneth Rodriguez. So I wanted to go ahead and share that interview on here with everyone. It's a little bit different for me. Usually I'm the one in the interviewer's chair, bringing somebody else on here and talking about their story and talking about, what are they up to? How did jiu-jitsu or how did martial arts affect and improve their lives? This time, I'm being interviewed by, this guy, Kenneth Rodriguez he's from Rochester. So I believe he's from upstate New York. And he's got a great podcast. He has, all kinds of awesome guests on there. He has, Chael Sonnen and all kinds of guys. So, be sure and check him out. It's the MMA Dude Bro Podcast. So I want to put this clip of the interview that I did, or that he did with me. So I'm being interviewed by this show, and I thought it was really cool. So I wanted to share that with the people that subscribe to this show. And I don't know how easy it is to really, get out there and show other people's stuff, like get other people into it if they don't, listen to a sample first. So just wanted to give everybody that opportunity to hear sort of someone else interviewing me as opposed to me interviewing someone else. And, also just, getting my ass in gear, trying to, get the health stuff together. It's been a bit taxing, but, I don't have any quit in me. If I had a dime for every time I fell up, I'll say that one more. If I had a dime for every time I fell down and did not get back up, I would have 0 freaking dimes. I don't. Anyway, what else happened lately? We had Ferguson and Lee, right? So Ferguson's your new interim champion, and then you also had Mighty Mouse with the suplex to armbar. It wasn't really a suplex to flying armbar. It was like a suplex into just a elevator armbar, something like that. It was really pretty. It was really smooth setup, and look, Rayborg tried hard to defend that armbar. You saw his elbow overextend, and then he couldn't do it. Mighty Mouse has been so underrated for so long. I mean, a lot of people wanted to call him the top pound for pound fighter, but you had so many people that just wanted to point, the John Jones or this fighter or that fighter. But if you just look at Mighty Mouse's record over the years, he's a stud. I mean, the guy just keeps coming. He's so technical, and it was just an awesome performance, awesome finish, spectacular, right? Other results, I'm not sure how closely anybody was following UFC 216. You had, who was on the fight? Verdum, won by submission. You had, Brad Tavares beat Talis Lates. And, I really wasn't on top of this card this weekend. I'm sorry. I was over in New York last week, got a chance to go in and say what's up to Renzo Gracie. It's always awesome to be around Renzo. He's the coolest guy on earth. Well, he's up there, right? He's one of the coolest. He's like the nicest guy. His academy's over there in sort of uptown Manhattan. So it was cool just to drop in for a bit and say what's up. Got to go home, and I say home. I got to go to my hometown of Toms River, New Jersey, and see some family I haven't seen in a very long time. So that was wonderful. I went to the Seaside Boardwalk. Those people that don't know, I'm actually from the general area where the Jersey Shore TV show was filmed. And no, I don't fist bump or do any of that stuff. But it's definitely awesome to be back there and to see people that I haven't seen in a very long time, friends, family, the whole thing. Got to see my brother, my oldest brother, who I don't see very often. So that was very cool. Let's see what else happened. Oh yeah, fuck terrorism, fuck terrorists, and fuck people that just go on and just talk politics because they see something happen. Look, in Las Vegas, it's real people. Real people died. Real people were shot. That is a terrorist attack, whether it's domestic terrorism or otherwise, it's terrorism. That's a sick person. And regardless of what color, what religion, why he did it, I don't give a shit. That's a monster, and it's and a coward, and just the worst kind of scum there is. And I don't know how many shooters there were, where they were, what in the hotel, what floor they're in, if there was, how it was done. I don't know. I wasn't there, but I do know, someone that was there in the crowd and that did take a bullet. Luckily, they weren't killed, but they were injured pretty substantially, and it was a very scary situation for everybody. For some of my pretty good friends, one of my best friends actually was affected very severely by this. So this is real people. It's real people. So please don't forget that when you're talking about this stuff with your friends or on social media. Try to be sensitive to that. Before you want to get on there and talk about gun control or get on there and talk about the conspiracy theories and stuff, just realize that's real lives that are affected there, and people died. I just talked to one of my closest friends who also lost somebody as well. So it's just tonight I had this conversation. I'm not trying to name drop. It's people, they like their privacy, but yeah, this sucks. This is terrorism. It's bullshit. This is a coward that did this, and there's that's all I gotta say. Just go easy on the social media stuff. All right, just remember it's real people. Try to maybe save the "I told you so" about Trump or gun control for a little bit later. Let's talk about it in like a month, not now. Please don't be an opportunist with this stuff in terms of politics and all that. It's just, there's no place for it. And that's all I got to say about that. Fuck terrorism, and fuck this monster murderer douchebag killing people. Vegas strong. So if you can help out, definitely help out. And also regards to just tragedies and loss of home, loss of life, Mike Kalimba's and his work to do the fundraiser for the storms down there in the Houston area in Texas. Man, everybody in the jiu-jitsu community came out and really got together and just raised a lot of damn money for people that really need it. So, big time props go out to Mike Kalimba's. He's an amazing photographer. If you've ever seen amazing jiu-jitsu, photographs when it comes to these IBJJF tournaments, the top, the Worlds, ADCC, all this stuff, Mike's the man. He takes great photos. You might see him over at the Fight to Win Pro events too. Just a great guy. And so he's also been working his ass off lately, training and dieting. He's lost a ton of weight lately. He's an all around good guy, and what he did for the community and bringing all of us together, it's huge. So I really appreciate that. So anyway, this is gonna be a quick one for me, just doing a little solo rant in the beginning. I'm not gonna go back and edit it. I probably misspoke a few times, but that's okay. It's my first time back right here on the horn, so I just wanted to come and say hello. Thank you to everybody that's hung in there and stayed a subscriber when I went a little bit quiet lately. And man, I'm really loving my want versus need gi. The damn thing's comfortable. Al was cool enough to gift me with a really nice one of the blue ones. I think it's a Series 5 that just came out, and I'm definitely going to be picking up the Pinktober, so the breast cancer awareness themed gi, where all the proceeds are going to go to a local charity here. So it's amazing to be able to work with people with heart, to people that really put passion into their work, that really love what they do, and that have their eyes set on more than just money. So Al's a great guy. His heart's in his brand. His heart is in his work and in jiu-jitsu in the community. And it's cool to see that he's given back, and he's going to be donating proceeds, basically all the profit from this kimono project directly to I think it's called Beats for Boobs, something like that. It's a local charity here in the Bay Area. Beats for Boobs, right? it's a local charity here that is focused on breast cancer and awareness, all that sort of thing. It says Beats for Boobs unites our community to support a local breast cancer organization through a collaborative celebration of art, fashion, food, music, and education. So that's all. It's a good cause. They're local. They've been around since 2003. They are a nonprofit organization, so it's good to work with people that want to do the right thing. So, and then want to help people. So remember, guys, empathy is a muscle. It's something you should be exercising regularly. And just being good to each other out there. Otherwise, that's all I got. If you're in the Bay Area, you're looking for a new home, you're in the market, check out Nima Meridi at Ninja Realtor. He's with the Intero group over there in San Jose, I believe. It's under Al Meridi Realty. So check him out. I think at Ninja Realtor, Nima Nima Meridi Moridi. He's got you covered for any of your real estate needs, that sort of thing. And my friends over at Bronze Humanity, they'll keep you looking good. They'll keep you tan, all that stuff. They have those sunless tanning, and they have a whole line of organic skincare products and stuff like that. They're over there in the I think near the East Ridge Mall in San Jose. Anyway, it's at Bronze Humanity. Say what's up to Lauren and Megan. They'll take good care of you. They're local. And then Want versus Need, wantversusneed.com. Just check them out. They'll have their gi for Pinktober dropping on Friday. So, at Want versus Need, Want VS NEED on Instagram and, or just wantversusneed.com. Be sure and check them out. And, if they, their stuff goes fast, it's really fast. So, if you're looking for a gi on Friday, I think that's when it drops. So, try and get it. It's, their stuff hits amazing. It's a high quality jiu-jitsu gi, and I'm definitely going to get an A3 for myself. So, try to get on that. And, the proceeds or profit will be going towards Beats for Boobs, which is a nonprofit again for breast cancer awareness, all that sort of thing. Again, I am Clint Cronin. I am that jiu-jitsu black belt guy trying to, show you how martial arts made my life better. And I now am officially a type 1 diabetic. So what you going to do if you're competing against me at the US Open and at the end you see my hand raised, you just got your ass kicked by some dude with diabetes. What's your excuse? I'm just fucking with you. I was going to win anyway. Anyway, thanks for listening. Go subscribe if you haven't already. Share with your friends. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or anybody you'd like to hear me get on here and have a conversation with, because I don't necessarily do interviews. It's kind of a conversational thing. Go ahead and hit me up at Clint Cronin on Instagram, the Twitter, Facebook, and any of those other things, social media types, or Clint at clintcronin.com. Again, thank you for subscribing to the Clint Cronin Show. Got some fun projects coming up real soon. I'm going to be doing some live streaming soon. I'll post more on that. I'll talk more about that when it gets closer to happening. But once again, thank you. Have a great day. Wish everybody productive days, success, and go out there and kick some ass on the mat, train. Make sure you're doing your warm up right, eat right, and count those carbs. You don't want to wind up stuck with this insulin shit. Anyway, Clint Cronin Show episode, I want to say 54. And this is the reverse collaboration. I'm being interviewed on the MMA Dude Bro Podcast. Tell me that's not the best name for a podcast. MMA Dude Bro. Clint Cronin on the MMA Dude Bro Podcast. Reverse podcast interview thing. Whatever. Anyway, thanks for listening. Love y'all. Cheers.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and instructor at the world-famous American Kickboxing Academy, Clint Cronin grew up an avid fan of professional wrestling, comic books, and computers. Little did he know back then how those interests would parlay themselves into an adult life that has taken him around the world, experiencing people and places that most would only see in a movie. During our conversation, Clint shares with us how he feels combat sports, jiu-jitsu in particular, represent the last honest jobs. the reason he feels AKA has become a scapegoat in the MMA media for alleged dangerous training practices, how achieving the rank of black belt served as merely a starting point rather than a destination in his jiu-jitsu journey, how Los Angeles has gradually replaced the Bay Area as California's MMA hub, and much, much more.
Kind of potpourri, but 10th Planet's actually pretty well developed in terms of what they're teaching, why and when. The other one is sort of similar in terms of like assimilating new students to the curriculum or to just jiu-jitsu in general, is the Gracie Academy, the Henner Gracie one in Torrance. So they both have a pretty good handle on how to get new people to stay, which has always been a problem with jiu-jitsu.
Because that's the other thing I try to weigh. I mean, I'm all for and all about in other aspects of my life perseverance, but the thing I think I'd have to mentally get myself prepared for is that humility of being on my back for like the first God knows when.
Think of it as personal development, an extension of it. I think it helps a lot of, it's helped me a lot in terms of just, humility, being a little bit more humble, getting your butt kicked certainly gives you a bigger world view of things. It's easy to live inside your own bubble and kind of, I'm awesome because life's awesome. I make a bunch of money and blah, blah, blah. But, there's always somebody bigger, stronger, faster. And with jiu-jitsu, I think it keeps you a little bit more grounded, physically as well as psychologically. And if you're into that sort of thing, maybe spiritually as well. I talked to Sergio Pena a few weeks ago out in Las Vegas. He's like a millionth degree black belt. From Brazil. I'm not even sure. He's one of Hickson Gracie's early foes or something like that. But he said he's kind of like a church and a drug dealer at the same time because the people are coming there for the similar, take the edge off in a similar way. But
yeah. I only had one formal jiu-jitsu lesson in my life, and that was a few years ago. And you might get a kick out of this, actually. Who was teaching the class? It was in Seattle. It was with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Online.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he actually teaches. And I used to be on that website, a member of their message board. They do this annual conventions and stuff in Vegas, like around, they used to do it Memorial Day weekend. Now they do it like International Fight Week. Like a bunch of the members of the website, hang out for the weekend and, nerd out and all that stuff. In fact, I think Filthy Tom might have went to one of the ones because they do one for UFC and then they go to WrestleMania every year as well. I think.
Oh yeah, I was with Filthy Tom over at the Sam's Town Casino in Las Vegas, and this is if you live over in that area, it's whatever. But there's definitely better areas to go to. But they were having a big screening. It's where they actually filmed the Ring of Honor anniversary show.
Okay.
And some other stuff. It's a pretty cool little venue. They have a big pro wrestling fan base there, and we were watching the show, and the people were going nuts. And one guy threw a bottle, and it came within a couple feet of hitting us.
Right.
He was really upset that I guess Goldberg or whatever, Brock Lesnar went over Goldberg. And,
right.
We were standing at the bar just sort of waiting to get out of the place because it was so packed. And the guy, Violent J from the Insane Clown Posse, came up to us and was, hey, just talking to us like it was normal. Because he didn't have makeup on. I had no idea who the hell he was.
Right.
But his fans were kind of asking, oh, you guys know Violent J? Oh, yeah, clearly. We go way back.
Gathering of the Juggalos, 2006.
Oh, yeah, exactly. He was out here, I guess, for some kind of cannabis festival in Las Vegas, and they played the show, and then I guess him and his friends went to watch WrestleMania on this big closed circuit sort of setup, the way they did back in WrestleMania 3 days with no pay-per-view yet,
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember watching WrestleMania 1. I grew up in Oswego, New York, and we had it in the auditorium of the college campus, and it was on like a big tarped screen, and, they projected it, and it was crazy. I mean, that was, you had no idea, of course, that it was going to be what it became, but man, Big John Studd and the Body Slam Challenge, the whole thing.
That's right, because it was the bag of money that Bobby the Brain Heenan ran off with, right?
Probably. Knowing that Bobby the Brain, there was some chicanery afoot.
Oh, absolutely. I always believed that Bobby the Brain Heenan could have made it to the top of any type of show business he wanted to, or I thought he had that kind of charisma you don't really see too often.
I'll go back every once in a while, every couple of years, and just watch that old, I think it was a 91 or 92 Royal Rumble where Ric Flair won everything, just to hear their commentary. Just the narrative that they did of like every guy would come in and Flair would still be there and like Bobby would cringe and then Girl would like haze him like, oh, this is going to be the one.
The man that drew number one, and then you hear Ric Flair's music come out. I remember watching that live on TV, and I don't know how the hell I was able to get the pay-per-view. My parents hated wrestling.
Yeah.
They hated it. Well, after the scandal, not the steroid scandal, that was more I told you so, but the one before that with the Ring Boys and where Pat Patterson was implicated quite a
bit. That was the one.
He was kind of the scapegoat, but it was like Mel Phillips and Terry Garvin were like...
At the time, I would hear about all this stuff. My dad was an attorney in New Jersey when I was growing up, so I'd hear all about the Jim Duggan and, the
Iron Sheik. Yeah.
Because they got pulled over on the Parkway, so, through the grapevine, I'd always hear from my father, "I told you so. It's not a real damn sport,"
Bro, kayfabe.
Oh, it wasn't just that. I mean, I guess the inside the legal circles or whatever, because it had some star power to it. Even the Jimmy Snuka thing, when that went down, that was talked about quite a bit in New Jersey, because I think that again happened in Jersey at some little motel off the turnpike somewhere.
So you think I should maybe do some research for some of maybe not so well known schools around here?
Let's see. You're actually in Rochester, so Rochester Jiu-Jitsu. Let's see. Nova Fitness Synthesis Jiu-Jitsu. You have 10th Planet. Gracie, is it Victor Gracie? Yeah.
How many gis do you think I would need starting out?
Just get yourself a nice gi, something that fits you. And I mean, I'm the worst person in the world to ask. I have multiple closets that are just gis, just either stuff companies have sent or that I bought over the years, and I have a rotation going, so none of them get worn out too badly. I just I've got a lot of them. At least, one good one. White's a good idea. If you're going 10th Planet, you're not going to wear a gi at all, which in the winter might suck a little bit, but in the summertime, it's not the worst thing in the world. Certainly not when it's hot. But
I mean, if I'm going to learn, if I'm starting from the bottom up, I'm a beginner, I should learn gi first, right?
My perspective is, if I were to choose one to learn, I would choose gi, because you can't sort of take away what you learn from dealing with the friction of actually having the close quarters. With no gi, you can rely a little bit more on the athleticism, a little bit more on the flexibility and that sort of thing. With gi, you guys are stuck together, so you really need to learn the nuances of the hip movements and keep your shoulders off the mat, keep your head off the mat, that sort of thing. So I do both, but if I had to pick one, I feel like going the gi route, it transfers a little bit better. You're not going to have those, skills of, just dealing with the collar, dealing with the clothing, all that sort of thing. And then the friction, if you're only training no gi, versus you can always take the gi top off and train no gi. So my foundation for what I do, the self-defense part, going and competing, and then having the option of, okay, we'll just get rid of the gi jacket and we'll train for no gi competition, or we'll train for, some more sort of self-defense type stuff where there isn't a gi necessarily, there isn't a jacket to grab onto. For me, longevity wise, I think if you're not looking at doing this competitively, hardcore, or anything like that, you can get a little bit more mileage out of your person going with the gi route. It's slowed down a little bit. It's not as much explosive movement because there's more friction. Things heavy, you start sweating. This thing weighs you down a little bit. Versus a no gi, you see a lot more, wrestling, a lot more separation. It's down to space management. So it's a little bit easier to do that when you have the extra handles. But keep in mind that they're not always going to be there, and learning the nuances of hand fighting and grip fighting and breaking posture and managing space with and without, it's important. But I think just getting into it, gi is a good way to immerse yourself, a bit of immersion or assimilation into the art or into the sport, however you look at it. There's so many gyms now, and there are a lot of great new black belts and great new gyms, but there's a lot of crap out there too. So having a sounding board, a lot of places there isn't even a black belt instructor at the academy, and while they might be getting some good stuff, you understand things differently as you sort of progress through the belt system, and the more time you spend in there. Things that I thought I knew, down to a T when I was a purple belt or a blue belt or something. Now as a black belt, I'm like, oh, I got just sort of a part of it, or I understood one concept to a way bigger picture. And what I do now versus what I did, 6-7 years ago is totally different. So it's a different world.
You grew up in Toms River, New Jersey.
Yep.
Home of Frankie Edgar.
That's right.
And you grew up a big pro wrestling fan. Much like myself, I would imagine that you watched on WOR out of Secaucus.
Absolutely. I was actually born in Secaucus.
Oh, no kidding. Huh. Because like during my time watching it growing up, you'd have to wait until after they'd show Benny Hill or an episode of the racetrack, the horse races, and the last race would always, or either the last race or the last skit of Benny Hill would always take forever, and it would come on with the old the old music. They had like a trumpet or something that would sound. They showed a match from the previous week from Madison Square Garden. It was like the Wild Samoans versus Bob Backlund and Bruno Sammartino, and it was a one-off. off because, you know, those guys were separate champions of their own realms and you didn't see those guys team together. You know what I mean? But that was my earliest memory. And then from then on, it was like Channel 9 was like at midnight on Saturdays. That was like my go-to. That was like waiting the whole week as a kid for that.
Oh, Channel 9 was pretty iconic. I remember, well, it was the Freehold Raceway with the horse races, I think, or either Monmouth or Freehold, because one of those didn't even exist back then. I remember when we had both of those tracks pop up. And I remember, I want to say WrestleMania 4 or 5 is when I really started getting into it. Benny Hill, all that stuff brings back memories. I still watch that channel, Me TV, which is basically Nick at Night. And so, I don't know. I don't know that a lot of people outside of the East Coast still watch all those sort of classic TV shows, but you know, I'd be up late watching, you know, the Honeymooners or Odd Couple or something like that. And, you know, half the people my age, they think I'm their parents or something with my sort of taste in, you know, wrestling and classic TV and stuff.
But you were exposed to it waiting for the wrestling to come on.
Oh, absolutely. I know a lot of people that don't live anywhere near Atlanta that became, you know, Falcons or Braves fans because they were waiting for TBS and trying to tune into the AM 750 WSB for Jim Ross's, you know, his radio show he would have on the Sundays or whatever on AM radio.
Yeah. And if that Braves rain delay, a lot of times you'd maybe catch Gordon Soley a little bit earlier, or they'd show a rerun or something like that. It was a fascinating time. Like in the 80s, like you had a lot of options.
We did. I remember when they brought Bob Backlund back to the WWF at the time, and they made him the biggest, you know, heel in the company, but he was still showing up on the Smoky Mountain shows or USWA, the territory shows that still existed at the time, and he was the biggest babyface there. So, you know, since we had cable, they still had the remnants of the territory and mixed in with the bigger companies. You know, Jim Crockett turned into WCW, and then obviously what Vince had purchased by that point, which was basically the entire country.
To be able to watch that as it happened, it gives you a different perspective than anything that a millennial fan can even compare to today.
It really does. I think for the guys that had access to the South and were able to go to shows and stuff, it gives people a different appreciation of Ric Flair. You know, he's kind of the last traveling champion because, I mean, now, of course, it's a little bit different. They are on the road all the time and everything's so fast because everybody wants instant media, the instant gratification. They want the YouTube and they want snaps from the wrestlers. They want Instagram stuff from the wrestlers. So seeing the titles change so quickly it's a very different thing.
The last time that I was like truly deep into pro wrestling, like a real dyed-in-the-wool fan, it was like maybe 2005, 2006. I would take my wife, my girlfriend at the time, like we would travel to like Edison, New Jersey and see ROH shows. We would travel to Pennsylvania to see Chikara. And I would see people like Bryan Danielson and Tyler Black and people like that you would never have thought that would have evolved to where they would be the top guys on the big stage now. And that to me, it's kind of like in a way full circle kind of gratifying in that, like I always knew, and hardcore fans that follow the independents always know where the talent lies, but the fact that they were able to rise up and break the glass ceiling, that's incredible to me.
Oh yeah, with Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson at the time, he actually, all those guys came out of that King of the Indies tournament over in APW. So for people that saw that Beyond the Mat documentary with, I think it was Mike Modest and I forget the other guy that was on there. Roland Alexander owned the promotion at the time, who just, you know, recently passed away a few years ago. His protege, Gabe Ramirez, started Pro Wrestling Revolution as sort of a, you know, cousin of the, you know, the San Jose version, whereas Hayward was where All Pro Wrestling still is. And they just put on a great show at the Cow Palace. I ran into X-Pac and a couple other people over there.
Shayna Baszler was on it too.
Yeah, she was. She's there. They have a women's champion, but I think her women's championship, the version of it, I think it's an offshoot that's a little bit more of shoot style than more of a traditional than the WWE women's champion, for example. Yeah, because she works a lot of shoot stuff, a lot of catch wrestling sort of stuff into her pro wrestling style. So I spent some time talking to her. I've met X-Pac a number of years ago. Actually, had a good conversation with him. He's a really cool guy. I actually trained over at Pro Wrestling Revolution for about a year or so. I was looking actually breaking in and doing the pro wrestling thing, but I was married at the time, and they'll put up with some stuff. They're not going to put up with everything. So,
right.
I didn't get to spend as much time as I wanted to on that, but it was a lot of fun, you know, training and, you know, going to a lot of shows. The part that sucked was definitely the ring crew. So for people that, you know, fans and stuff that don't know, the ring isn't just magically appear before the show. The wrestling students and the lower guys on the card at these independent shows, and even some of the bigger promotions, they actually have to go in and build the damn ring, set up all the chairs, set up all the guardrails, set up the merchandise stands, work security, whatever. So by the time the show is actually set up, you've been working since 7 a.m. and you probably aren't going to bed till about 3 a.m. It's a grind. You're paying your dues with the sweat labor, right? You're with the labor of love, of course, but you're also paying your dues financially. You're paying to be trained. You're paying for an education in the business. You're paying to, for these people's time. Like they don't make it easy. This wasn't the WWE Performance Center. Those guys out there on the indies that actually make it to the top. It's really impressive to see that they make it as far as they do, because it's easy to just say screw this and go home. Just like jiu-jitsu, it's easy to get your ass kicked on the first day and say nope, going back to the accounting firm.
So is it fair to say that growing up that you were fairly like kind of a nerdy kid to some degree, because you were into comic books as well? You label yourself a comic book historian, and I guess we can delve into that a little bit if you like. But I mean, like, I'm guessing with the comic books, the pro wrestling, and then the interest in computers.
Yeah.
The Clint Cronin as a youngster probably didn't take the form of the gladiator that we see now.
I didn't. I had two older brothers. They were both kind of like metalheads, or quite a bit older. So they're some 12, 13 years older than me. We're really close now, but growing up as a kid, they already went through the high school experience, that sort of thing. They kind of check you a little bit. We'll just say I didn't get bullied in school because I I already had to deal with that crap at home. Just sort of not being pushed, but they toughen you up a little bit. Though when it's no, it's no. So my parents weren't home. My brothers were tasked with dealing with me, and as a teenager dealing with a little kid, school age kid, they didn't have much patience for it. So I learned pretty quick, to dummy up, and if I wore something stupid, they would let me know, look, that's not going to fly in school. So in terms of the stuff I was into, it's ironic because I think we had to do the show and tell one day, and everybody, the girls brought their Barbies in, and I had the old LJN or whatever it is, the pro wrestling, the little ring with the action figures and all this stuff. And at the time, in the late 80s, no, pro wrestling wasn't cool at all. It was, they'd come up to you and tell you it's fake and all this stuff. Like, yeah, okay, so it's Jurassic Park, move on. My father, he really wanted me to play basketball, so I played basketball too. I wrestled a little bit in grade school and early middle school, that sort of thing. So somehow it was a mix. I got away with being a geek, but sort of walking the line between the two groups, because it's in New Jersey, especially in the 80s, early 90s, the kids were not nice to each other. It didn't matter what you were into. Somebody was going to be an asshole to you for something. It was very competitive. Kids were real mean to each other. It's called bullying now, but just then it was probably going to get in a fight at some point, or more than one. I lived in a good neighborhood. It was just, we had a lot of people from, different groups where parents still had really strong views, where, the generation before, everybody lived in separate neighborhoods. The Irish people lived in one place, the Italians lived in another, there'd be a black neighborhood, Puerto Rican neighborhood, but then the world's changing. Everybody all lives together, goes to the same schools, but they still have, their parents are still assholes. So they're sending their kids into schools with, terrible attitude, and, everybody's still fighting with each other. And it was interesting, but, comic books started getting more popular, and, look at it now. It's just about every blockbuster is based on a comic book or a graphic novel. You have artists like Mark Millar. They write stuff strictly as a 4 or 5 issue thing that's meant to be a graphic novel adapted to a movie. I mean, he writes comic books for movies. Look at Kick-Ass, look at Logan. So, I mean, Hollywood now, that's vindication. I was right? I was right. Then you look at what happened with skateboarding. I was into skateboarding for years, and they'd look at the police would take your board away from you if you went, skated at a public shopping center or something. It was a crime. Remember the T-shirt, skateboarding is not a crime. But then look at Tony Hawk and how skateboarding in the mainstream and these YouTube channels, there's a ton of them out there just skateboarding. It's everywhere in mainstream culture. So again, vindicated. I was right. I was into wrestling, and then look at Austin 316 and the NWO, and now look at the UFC. I was into that one, since the first one. So every single time I was right every time, because every single one of these things is mainstream accepted. There's millions of fans, and even for people that don't like pro wrestling, they sure like The Rock. So again, I think it's just important. If kids like things, if they're into something, just go with it. Let them do what the hell they want to do. People are going to be assholes regardless. So if there's something you like or something you want to do, don't listen to the noise, the they that aren't paying your bills. Just go with it.
You eventually became a systems engineer.
Yeah, I had 2 working parents. My father, he was a lawyer, but he was a lot older than my mom. He passed away when I'm 14. But when growing up and stuff, he'd be in his office late, and my mom would be working late, and I'd just be sitting there in my dad's office waiting for him to get off of work so we can go home and eat or whatever it was, because that was the babysitter. Just sitting in the office, and I actually got into computers at a really young age on some really old, what the hell was like an 8086 or like a Tandy or something. and just opened up a text file and made a catalog of every comic book I had, which wasn't, that many. And we eventually had one at home, and I'd just sit there and, how does this thing work? And when BBSs became a thing, we got a modem, and then the internet became a thing. So got it online and just, self-taught for actually all of it.
That's interesting. Is that like your first foray was a database for your comic book collection?
Yeah, I remember a secretary was just typing something and said, here, you can type here. And I was like, oh, file save, that's real basic. But we used to have to take typing classes in school anyway, in grade school, and we had a computer class. So yeah, that's just where it started. And, then however many years later, I'm at Groupon as an engineering manager. And, I've been basically a 17-year career doing all that sort of stuff, systems administration, systems engineering, and into management.
It eventually brought you to Silicon Valley. Connect the dots for me, the journey from the East Coast to the West Coast to do your work.
I actually was in Las Vegas, and my mom was in Texas at the time. My father had already passed away, and I was already done with junior college. I finished really young, and I was basically going from Nevada back to Texas, and I was going to help my mom move. I was just going to do it as a road trip. So I basically flew into West Texas and drove this 25-foot U-Haul from Midland, Texas, back to actually Cortland, New York. And I got all her stuff there. We unloaded it, and I went back to the Jersey Shore to the beach because it was summertime. And so I'm on Ortley Beach, which is, for the people that watch the Jersey Shore show, basically one exit down. It's right there, but there's no boardwalk. It's just a nice beach to go hang out on. So I'm just laying on the beach, and while I was in Cortland, the day before we went to the beach, my mother saw this job posting at Cornell University at the Laboratory for Elementary Particle Physics, so the Laboratory for Nuclear Studies, for a systems administrator. And she just wanted her kids closer, and she wouldn't stop. She wouldn't let off. Like, would you just apply for it? Would you just apply for it? It's a good opportunity. It's Cornell. I'm like, fine. So I sent my resume in real quick and literally just drove to Jersey, went to the beach, just hang out with my friends, it's whatever. And I'm laying on the beach maybe a few days later, and I get a call from this guy with a really thick Pakistani accent saying, this is from the Laboratory for Elementary Particle Physics, saying it really fast. And I thought he was trying to sell me something. I didn't understand a damn thing he said. So I just hung up. Mm-hmm. He called back again and said it more slowly. And basically they wanted to hire, they don't bring me in for the interview. And I eventually got hired there. I got to, because you worked there, which was crazy shifts and stuff. You'd have to work 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. And then I went back to school. So I'm going back during the day and then basically sleep a few hours and go back to work again midnight to 8 a.m. But yeah, I got to go to school there because I worked there.
Nice. Ivy League school. Wow.
Yeah, that was from literally, I was in Las Vegas. I was a sysadmin at a small real estate marketing company and, selling websites to the dancers at the local gentlemen's clubs, which was very lucrative. This is around 2000 at the time. I mean, it was basically when the internet was starting to become a big thing. And, instead of, being sold, their bill of goods, they'd ask you what I did for a living. I work in, work with the internet, websites, that sort of thing. I work with computers, and I met one, and from there I started doing websites for them, which was real cookie cutter stuff, but it was kind of ridiculous. Anyway, I wound up back at Cornell, and then, after, a couple years working there, and I was on, I think, monster.com or whatever, and I had a recruiter reach out to me about a job opportunity in Sunnyvale, California, and it paid a hell of a lot more than I was making in New York. So I went out there, did the interview, got the job, and I moved to Silicon Valley with a couple backpacks and $150 JetBlue one-way ticket. And from there, I went to get into, I didn't really know many people out there. So there was a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym, Ralph Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, right there down the block down El Camino Real from where I work. So I started up there. And
what made you want to even go to that gym, though?
It had Ralph Gracie's name on it, and the other gyms were really far. There weren't a ton of them back then. And
well, no. I mean, had you had previous interest? I mean, you grew up a wrestling fan, but had you've done some wrestling in school, like you were saying, but had you, what prompted the interest, want to get into jiu-jitsu?
I did martial arts as a kid. Just, everybody gets, the parents are trying to find a babysitter. So they're like, all right, might as well put them in karate, might as well put them in taekwondo or something. So I did that as a little kid for a couple of years, and I had no attention span for it at all. I didn't get it. I was a little kid that wanted to read Superman comic books. I didn't really care. I liked watching martial arts movies and wrestling and stuff, but actually doing the taekwondo
Taekwondo. I just wasn't really into it. But a number of years later, I wound up doing judo in college or in junior college, and then I was doing the judo club at Cornell, and there was a lot of guys rolling around there, and I had no idea what's going on. I'm getting strangled with my jacket. You know, they were always talking about the Gracies and all that sort of thing, and you know, I know who Hoist Gracie is, obviously, from way back in the day in Black Belt magazine and the early UFCs and stuff. So it was just a matter of UFC starting to get a little bit more popular, realizing that there's a lot of events in San Jose and that area. There's quite a few gyms as well. And then what the hell was it? It was just sort of driving down the street one day, and I would always see it. I'm looking for places to eat, and I would always see Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And, you know, one day I went in, and they were really nice. You know, you paid whatever the first month. They give you a gi and proceed to teach you how to move around, you know, move your hips and stuff, all that sort of thing, and then proceed to kick your ass for the next, well, I've been doing it for, 13 years now, so that's about how long. So it was tough back then. If you remember On the Mat, the OTM fight shop and the website, Alan Marquez, Gumby, and Scott Nelson were really big in terms of keeping jiu-jitsu alive. They were, you know, Gumby still works with some of these promotions doing commentary, and he's always been really active. When the UFC is in San Jose, they do the open workouts at his academy. He runs Heroes Martial Arts. So it was he and Sandro Santiago Batata is a Masters World's champion, Pan Am champion, all that. These are my first two instructors, and you know, they were always really cool, very welcoming, but it was severely hard training. If you ever heard old school, you know, Ralph Gracie stories, that, you know, some are true, some aren't, but as harder, you know, as brutal as the training is, the one thing I can say about Ralph Gracie for sure, as a person, as an instructor, he's a great motivator. You want to do your best. You know, some people do quit, but that's the truth in jiu-jitsu in general. Most people quit on the first day, and it's because it's hard day one. You're out of your element. You know, whatever your sense of self is, whatever how strong or how fast or whatever picture that you've painted for yourself in your head, whatever defense mechanisms and walls are there, you know, once you're, you know, on the mat with someone that is skilled, that knows what they're doing, these things all go out the window. And whether you're willing to be honest with yourself afterwards is really the determining factor. I feel for people of all ages, it builds humility. It builds sort of a better sense of self with obvious health benefits. I mean, you're at fight school, so you're going to be able to defend yourself better and all that sort of thing. But I feel it's very humbling. I feel like it's great just in terms of personal development.
I heard the podcast that you did with Noah Lahat. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, just no worse than I did.
Okay. Like his nickname is Neo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're talking to Neo, and the one thing that he mentioned that I think is right on kind of the tip of what you're saying is that there's no cheating.
It's one of the last honest jobs. Jiu-jitsu, MMA, the same thing. You're constantly tested. It's not like a formal belt test where you go out and you do some kata and all that sort of thing. You know, no disrespect meant to any of those arts, but your place in the ecosystem, in the tribe, in the pride of lions or whatever analogy floats your boat, your place is right there based on your performance, like how you blend into that ecosystem. And if you aren't where you think you are, everybody else has a pretty good idea. You know, when you roll with somebody, when that person rolls with somebody else, that person rolls with somebody, like you're sort of the pecking order, and where people, you don't even need the belts. The belts don't matter, because you could have somebody come in that's just a stud wrestler, and they're going to matriculate through that system of belts, even if they don't physically have it. If they're out there putting the work in and kicking ass, and they're performing, they're going out there, they're competing, they're winning these big tournaments and stuff, and they're obviously learning the stuff and being able to, you know, employ it much faster. I mean, their place in the ecosystem is going to reflect that.
Now, one of the things that I think is most fascinating things about your story is the fact that this job in Sunnyvale that you landed, it allowed you for some travel that kind of parlayed your education in jiu-jitsu. And that, did you seek out different gyms as you would travel to places deliberately, or did it just happen?
Oh no, this is deliberate. I was the first real trip I did abroad for anything was Singapore, and I brought my gi with me. As at the time I was either white or blue belt. I was just really just all about it. Everything about jiu-jitsu. If there are podcasts, I'm trying to listen to them. Every technique video, every tape, every book, talking to as many people as I could. So regardless if I traveled domestically or abroad, I'd bring my gi with me, and I would just have to figure out a way to wash the darn thing in the hotel room. There's been some funny stories on that. I'm kind of a big hygiene nut, so I've definitely come up with some pretty unique ways to keep the gi clean and germ free and stuff. But yeah, going to Singapore, there was no big gym like Evolve there at the time, so the jiu-jitsu they had there was in the back of a Chinese dance studio where they would put down the puzzle mats like you have for your kids in the, the playroom. And, there was a couple of people from the US, some Japanese people, and just from all over. And that club was ran by a blue belt, this guy Benji, and he's still out there, doing stuff, active in the scene.
Whether you're in a big gym or whether you're, on location somewhere that, like you said, in the back of a dance studio and God knows where, it's like this thing to where it's just an instant commonality. It's like a universal, it's like a tribe. It's like an accepted language and community.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said before, it's the last honest job, but at the same time, it doesn't matter religion, it doesn't matter race, orientation, sex, any of that stuff. Everybody is there for one single purpose. All of those things that would bring up any sort of divisive characteristic or quality are just out the window, because it's just all that stuff is shut off. You're there for the love of what you're doing. And I think it comes down to a much more primal feeling. It's because you have something special in common. You've done something hard together. So the people that you meet and the friends you make in training, I'm sure in striking arts as well, but in jiu-jitsu for sure. I have friends from all over the world, and we've been friends for years. I maybe only met them a couple of times. We still keep in touch. Every country that I've traveled to train in. I remember I was in Brazil in a movie theater in Goiânia, Brazil. It's in Goiás. It's in the interior, kind of near Brasilia, near the capital. I was there with my now ex-wife and my ex-brother-in-law. We're just sort of waiting for what was Ant-Man, the Homem Formiga, the Marvel Studios Ant-Man movie. We're waiting for we're waiting for our tickets. Yeah, Paul Rudd.
I know him as Paul Rudd.
There you go, Ant-Man, Paul Rudd.
Yes.
So we're waiting for that movie, and I hadn't been to Brazil at that point until 2 or 3 years, and I hear Clint, and it was a group of people that I had trained with a couple of years ago from Brazil that recognized me, ran over, and it had been that many years. We'd only trained together a couple of times, but we're still close. And they saw me in a mall in a country thousands of miles from home. They recognized me, and I wasn't even doing a podcast then. This is just from jiu-jitsu, from an isolated gym in a random place in the world. Like they were like, oh hey, they were completely unplanned. It was pretty crazy. It's one of those times where you realize, okay, this is something special. Like guys in the military, how they're some of them the same troop, they're friends for life, because it's like they go through something tough together. They endured, they were there, and nobody, if you weren't there, you don't know. You don't have that same experience. So the same, I'm not trying to put a parallel, because obviously the military is way harder. The stakes are way different. We have a safe word, we have tapping and all this stuff, but the same thing. You get a bond. You put in that work together, and because you're out there, you're pushing yourself further than people think they can, and you get a good team together, and you guys work your asses off through injuries, through blood, sweat, years, whatever. And you guys are going to be friends for a while.
Is it an equal amount of, say, gypsies and hippie type people to, say, people in suits and people that are in like corporate walk of life? I mean, it's got to be a pretty divergent spectrum of people, right?
I've trained with everything from, Berkeley hippies to people on the active NFL roster, man. There's everything you can imagine, every walk of life, from accountants and, big hedge fund executives to police to, former gangsters to ex-convicts to porn stars to everything. Every type of person shares that commonality, and they're all friends, man.
That is so crazy.
Yep.
And that's one of the things I think that makes your podcast so great, is because not only is it the stories and the different tales about the people from those different walks of life, but you combine that with the fact that not only is your show about your passion for grappling, it also straddles that kind of like open, like the freeform storytelling, but also self-help, but also motivational. You know what I mean? You're in a nice little pocket where you get to talk about a lot of different things, and you're able to concentrate on, each show, each episode of your podcast has the potential to be something equally different and varied, but equally potent. You know what I mean? Because it is equally as much about all those different things.
I mean, day to day, I'm noticing more and more I feel like the more you say yes in life, the more the universe sort of opens up opportunities for you. It sounds like some hippie stuff, or sort of whatever Oprah's book, The Secret, where you manifest your life. I haven't read that. I've heard people talk about it, but I feel like there's some sort of thing to it. People that are just more open to change, more open to, well, let's just check this out. Let's not poo-poo this just yet. Maybe let's see where this goes. And I feel like I try to embody that a little bit. There's stories to tell. I feel like if there's value in it, cool. I think there's enough people out there on their drives every day that there's enough content and bad and misinformation on the internet. Not just, misinformation as far as people are just wrong. They're deliberately saying incorrect things to mislead or otherwise profit on people. So if I can come from a place of honesty and literally just say, look, when you're at the gym, because you should be at the gym, you're on the elliptical, you're on the little cardio machine. I like to use cardio for my warm up. And the way I look at it is, if I'm on the elliptical and I'm cruising, you get into that sort of flow mode where you're just sort of getting through it, just trying to work up a sweat. And you're daydreaming about something in your head, that you want to do that you haven't done. Those things, if you don't get off your ass and do them, eventually they'll catch up to you. And when you're too old to do them, those are going to just pile on top of each other and just, I don't want to be old and miserable, is basically what I'm saying. So if there's something that you're daydreaming about doing and you're afraid of doing it, or you're afraid of what your mom's going to say, you're afraid of what your wife's, whatever, just at least write it down. At least entertain the idea that you can do things. Like, I think anyone's capable of anything in every sense of the phrase. Me, I wanted to do this podcast thing. I wanted to do jujitsu. I wanted to go and compete at these tournaments. I was sitting there thinking about doing that stuff. And all of a sudden I'm 30. I'm like, wait a minute. I need to start doing some of this stuff. So I got the show going. And for me, I'm going out there, I'm making friends, I'm training with some of the best people in the world. And the people I've met so far, they've all been extremely receptive to it. I've learned so much. I mean, I think right after UFC 200, I had to drive home from my academy. We were watching it as a group to meet Tate Fletcher in my kitchen, which is a few years ago. I didn't know any of these people. And up to today, I'm just between friends and friends of friends, just through jiu-jitsu alone. The people I've met are heroes and, legends of this sport and other sports, like it. And I wouldn't have had any of this if I just sat on my ass, if I just did nothing. So if there's only one message I can sort of get out there to people, is if there's something you want to do, just do it. I'm not trying to be this preachy motivational speaker person. And, even if people don't like my show necessarily, just take from it that I am benefiting from it, that having the balls to get up and do it, even when sometimes it's discouraging and sometimes it's hard and not every show's a hit, but you get better and you learn more and you can improve your life, and that positivity and that forward motion is contagious. So if you can make someone else's life better, I think you should do it. So if only that, cool, I'm a success, I'm happy.
At what point does AKA and being a coach there become your job as opposed to the computer stuff?
Right now, all I do, this is it. I do jiu-jitsu and I train, and that's it.
No, but I mean, at what point did that become that, though? I mean, at what point did you wave goodbye to your daily job?
Just a couple months ago, maybe 3 or 4 months ago.
Really?
3 or 4 months ago. I think there's a big misconception out there that anybody that's on a YouTube show or on television is making millions of dollars from those endeavors.
Right.
Or even, with a gym, or even the fighters I see on the UFC. It's crazy because just because someone signs an autograph or has a following on wherever doesn't necessarily mean they're making a killing. And I know a lot of people on the UFC active roster and recently retired, even former champions, that, they're not rich. You know what I'm saying?
My presumption, I guess, was that if you're that entrenched with AKA, it would be a full-time job helping not just the regular people who are part of the gym membership, but also if you're working with actual people that are in combat sports, that's got to be like a full-time endeavor unto itself. You know what I mean?
Between teaching classes, private lessons, and just working with people, and then the podcast, my time is pretty well spent for sure. But again, the gyms, it's a team thing, so you got to figure each of these guys all has their sort of crew and the guys they work with. There's the core team as well, but throughout the Bay Area and California lately, I'm actually trying to get my ass ready for Masters Worlds. I've been doing so much because it's hard to teach, train, and be competitive and do a podcast. And so now that I'm not doing the tech stuff anymore, getting on podiums at some of these higher level competitions is something I want to do. I want to be a champion. I mean, I've done well at US Open the last couple of years, but there's bigger ones out there and abroad. And so getting out and maybe doing seminars, and that'd be cool. But right now, I want to go kick some ass and document it, right?
You spent so long doing jiu-jitsu and you finally achieved the goal of being a black belt. A lot of people would just think of that as being a destination. But listening to your podcast and finding out more and more about you, you decided that was just a springboard. Like, you're doing, in essence, right now, your postgraduate work. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, once you achieved the black belt status, the first thing that I think you kind of geared yourself towards is, okay, what seminars can I get new information from? What can I take in next as far as new stimuli? Where are the events that I should be competing at? I would think in terms of like just the responsibility of being a teacher, if you want to be a good teacher and provide a good service to your clientele, you want to be as up to date informationally as possible. And that's not going to be achievable if you're just resting on the laurel of like, okay, I hit this mark at one point and that's it.
We're sitting here on a system where we're basically telling our students and telling everybody, your goal here is to keep improving position and to be pragmatic. And if you're mounted, we always tell people if you get stuck in the mount position, first things, stop, breathe, assess the situation. How bad is it? And what can I do to improve the situation just 1%? So through that constant trying to improve position, which is what you're doing in essence in jiu-jitsu and grappling, if I were to get my black belt and just stop and just, train sometimes and just, put on get a belly on me. You know what I mean? Like how I'd be a complete hypocrite. I'd be an asshole. I'd be misleading students. It's like, yeah, here's what you do. You get your black belt, then you sit there and, get fat. No, you always keep going. The belts are just there as there's obviously a lot of work that go into them. There's symbolism. There's, the place in the academy. There's the tribal aspect. Sure. And, the hierarchy. Great. But again, like I said, it's the last true or last honest sport or last honest job. So it's not exactly honest to just go, work your ass off, get the belt, and then just sit there. And like I was competing within, I think, 2 months of getting my black belt, and I made it to. I wound up getting bronze in the the U.S. Open. It wasn't but I won matches. It wasn't like there was 3 people there. It was a whole thing, and I went to win. It was hard. The level was definitely different than brown belt, but I want to get it. It was a wake-up call. Okay, you got to lean down a little bit. Your cardio isn't what you thought it was. You're going to train a little harder, get a little better. And so I went to Jean-Jacques Machado, went down there, went to 10th Planet in Hollywood with Eddie Bravo, went to the one with Boogeyman recently in San Diego with Eduardo Telles, with Henry Gracie, did some stuff over there. I'm just trying to get out there and make new friends and learn new things. The resources are out there. These people are out there. And the black belt, they at least say, okay, this isn't just some dude, because there's a ton of podcasts. It's getting guests isn't the easiest thing. It's a lot of networking, it's a lot of hustle, and a lot of people just don't have time. So for me, I'm in California. I have access to a lot of these guys. I drive probably to LA more than I drive to San Francisco, and that's a difference between 300, 400 miles, because there's so many people down there. There's so much to learn. I still want to meet Crone Gracie. I want to meet Hickson. They're down there. There's a ton of people. So there's things that I want to do, and it's just a matter of putting a pen to paper or getting your notes open or your calendar open and be like, okay, how do I do this? Where do I start? What's the big plan here? And so for me, it's just growth, right?
Anything that you feel is worth your time and worth your devotion. It's like what you're saying. If you can think it, then do it and just see how far you can go with it.
I remember the first day they opened the Sunnyvale AKA. So I came over there from Half Gracie in Mountain View. Our main instructor, Batata, he went and he opened his own gym, and it was just not reasonable distance from where I lived. I would have had to go all the way over across Santa Cruz, and it just wasn't realistic without physically moving over there. So I wound up over there. I was the first student at the Sunnyvale AKA. But I remember Bobby Southworth. Remember from Ultimate Fighter Season 1? Mm-hmm. All right, so he was the jiu-jitsu instructor for quite a while. He was the original one at AKA Sunnyvale, and he was a lot of the AKA fight team instructor besides Dave Camarillo at the time. So I just remember Javier Mendez coming in and telling us there's this guy Kane, and he's going to be the heavyweight champion someday. Like he's the guy. He's going to be UFC heavyweight champion. And just seeing his growth from a distance, seeing guys like John Fitch and Mike Swick and Josh Koscheck and Josh Thompson, and knowing that Frank Shamrock was here and all this stuff, just seeing their careers grow, seeing how they handled the spotlight, seeing how hard they train, like that example they set, and just the number of just killers that came through the door over there, jiu-jitsu guys, wrestlers, or fighters in general, just that toughness and seeing how they carried on. It was a good education in sort of how to handle, just dealing with that in general, how to interact with them. And okay, for me, I was on the mat too. I was training with them. I'm rolling around with guys like, all these people. I went to a thing with John Fitch the other day. There was a seminar just like a couple weeks ago. He came over and did that. We have Leo Vieira coming through all the time now. It's crazy the number of top guys that come through San Jose, and it's not even Los Angeles. Los Angeles is insane. The level of talent there in all of MMA is crazy.
It's funny because you always think of, because of Frank Shamrock and Strikeforce and all that, you think of the Bay Area as being the hub as opposed to Los Angeles.
For a very long time, you could say that it was, and then for MMA for sure, but LA it brings so many people over. I don't know if it's the weather or just it's Los Angeles in general, but in terms of jiu-jitsu, there's so many academies down there. The one thing I mentioned the other day, it's the difference between San Jose and say San Diego or LA. In San Jose, you'll see a flyer that says free introductory class, so the first week's free. But when you go to San Diego or LA, it says the first class is free to residents only, because like the tourism just for MMA, just for jiu-jitsu in San Diego and LA is so abundant that they would just be giving away, a lot of money.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, some of these gyms just for drop-ins charge, over $100 just one class for a drop-in for a visitor.
Wow.
That's a thing.
I remember seeing the documentary they did on John Fitch, the one that followed him through the GSP fight.
Oh, yeah.
Now, which location of AKA was that was featured in that film? It was kind of in a strip mall. Was that the one in San Jose that eventually became the new place, or?
No, so that's our old Hillsdale location. I think that was the second Hillsdale location. The first one was right down the street. The one you probably saw. Ooh, no, that was the original Hillsdale location, because the other one was a Hollywood video store that they adapted into a MMA gym. The current one is huge. It's 2 stories. There's tons of rooms everywhere. That's our headquarters right down off of Realm. You're driving out into the sticks.
But the one that was in the strip mall, I want to say it was in the same strip mall as like a Big Lots or something like that.
Yeah, that's the Hillsdale Avenue one.
Wow.
The only one I don't think I've been to was when Kung Lee, when his gym was sort of merged with AKA as well, and Milpitas. But the rest of them, yeah. There was a one before that location. That might have been 1 or 2, but those date way back to the, Javier's his back in the day stuff when he was, the man in kickboxing, when it was Lion's Den, and then it was Frank Shamrock over at AKA.
A lot. I don't know how much of this is done for the sake of clickbait. I'm sure a lot of it is, but I mean, when you hear about AKA these days, you hear a lot about how guys are getting injured because they go too hard there, and it's the environment which breeds these injuries. And I wonder if maybe the truth doesn't lie somewhere in the middle, and that maybe the reality of just this business being what it is, that you kind of have to go hard if you're going at the top level. I mean, what do you make of reports that come out, I guess? I mean, what's the separate, I guess, the riff from the raff for me on that?
When we're talking about fighters from AKA, we're not talking about guys in the top 100 or top 50. You're talking about some of the best guys in the world. These are the guys that are going and giving it their 110, 200%, whatever. That's not a real number, but they're giving everything to being champions. They're trying to reach that top level, and they're achieving it in a lot of cases, right? So the competitive nature, and look at the guys to get to that level. These aren't 21 or 22-year-old guys. Kane's in his 30s, right? DC's well into his 30s. So you got to expect there's going to be some injuries that come out of it. And, there's a lot more spotlight or exposure on it. The reason you're not hearing about a lot of other gyms is these guys aren't as high up the card. Who else, right? They're bigger. They're also bigger guys. You guys are surprised that a heavyweight gets injured or a light heavyweight gets injured at that pace at the world title level, the UFC. There has to be a lot of times it's and rather than or, So there has to be some sparring, because if you go into that level of competition and you're not accustomed to being hit in the face by somebody your level or hopefully better, how is that going to play out in front of 30,000 people and millions of people watching on TV? You know what I'm saying? So it's a mixture between, you have to be safe. Traumatic brain injuries are a thing, but you also have to be ready to eat shit. You have to know what it's like. So I think it's and rather than or. It is valid that you can't just go out there like barbarians. There's obviously a lot of these, our gym and plenty of others have learned from, over time. But at the same time, if you go out there and you don't spar, how are you going to be prepared for someone like Khabib or someone like Kane or even if the shoe's on the other foot, any of their opponents? Like, how are you going to be prepared to compete at that level? Yeah, you have to protect your brain. Obviously, you have to protect your body. But these guys have the nutritionists, the strength and conditioning guys. They're basically scientists by this time, because besides Jackson or any of these big camps, who else is there that's at that level? I mean, Duke Roufus, okay, right?
American top team.
American top team, then AKA. And all of these gyms they do have injuries, but the number of headliners that come out of AKA, there's a lot. You had the entire welterweight division living at that gym just a number of years back.
Yeah, because I always thought about how that got started, how of all the other top gyms, how AKA kind of became the scapegoat for that.
I could give you an opinion on why that is, but I might be just overstepping or a little bit wrong. But I don't care. Remember the video game, the first UFC game they came out with?
Oh yeah, because of the freaking thing with intellectual property and like people's likenesses.
Yeah, they loved us until that shit happened.
Yeah. Okay.
So that there's any sort of bad blood or anything like that, I don't know. They probably get along great. I like all our guys. I haven't spent any time talking to Dana or any of the high ups there. Everybody I have talked to has said that they're a class act to work with. They love working with them.
But if I'm smelling where you're going here, let's not kid ourselves in that there's a relationship between some of these higher end media outlets and the UFC to where sometimes certain agendas are proliferated for the sake of getting access.
It doesn't even have to be an agenda. You could just piss off somebody, and that's how the business was done at the time. It obviously, the relationship was obviously strained during that video game thing, and ever since then, it was before that, you never heard anything about how AKA guys were getting hurt or how they trained like barbarians or whatever, the different little sound bites I've heard over the years. But the grain of salt you have to take it with is where you're hearing it from, and they're not there. These guys are grown-ass adults, man, and injuries happen. It's like saying, you never get hurt doing boxing or kickboxing. There's always injuries. Yeah. In MMA, who's your training partner? Cain Velasquez says, who's your training partner? It's Daniel Cormier. And they're bringing in guys like, Buchecha and these like top level jiu-jitsu guys, and God knows what level strikers to work with them. So that the competitiveness doesn't result in some mishaps every once in a while. It sucks too. It's, I'd love to see these guys out there. You have Cain with the back thing, right? I'd love to see him in the title picture, but again, we're not all 21 years old.
How important is it now that Scott Coker is back in the picture with Bellator and that having the headquarters, I guess it would be headquartered now in San Jose?
I think it's just good for the area in general. I'm a fan of Bellator. The UFC, they have so many fighters. They put on so many shows. Not everyone is going to be blockbuster in terms of the star power or whatever. That's just how it is. But Bellator's smart. They make use of a lot of local talent, which is what you want to do. So, you're able to fill the prelims with that. And then when they do put on a show, like they have their pay-per-view coming up, you've got, Matt Mitrione and Fedor. I was at the Fedor and Mitrione, the first fight where Mitrione had to pull out for the kidney stones. And what I noticed is it was still a pretty full house. Even though Fedor wasn't fighting, the people stayed. The more consistent they are, and it's been paying off because with the UFC, they have so much content, which is awesome. It's amazing to see how many great fighters there are out there and all the opportunities for these guys. And it's cool to see that there is a way to sort of get there. But at the same time, I think it's overload to the casual fan. With the development of the interim championships, as well as the addition of new divisions.
And trying to hold up the court with some of these alleged or proposed super fights, too, keeping divisions hostage. I mean, I know that because you're affiliated with AKA, that your feelings with Bisbing are kind of lean towards a certain way. But it was funny because, I think it was the same podcast with Neo, where he said something that was completely hilarious. He goes, the Bisbing, I think he's douche. And it's like, on the one hand, you got to give it to the guy that it took him, he didn't take the easy route, and Rockhold underestimated him and he got caught. But at the same time, there's a certain responsibility to it. I mean, Conor McGregor, even though they set the table for him a little bit, great. He's a 2-division champion. The belts aren't supposed to be like trophies. You're supposed to go out there and defend it if you want to have any credibility or any legacy.
The way they're playing it now, I mean, you've got WME, IMG, which is, Venus Williams, Serena, and Batman, and God knows who else owning the damn thing.
Guy Fieri, don't forget.
Oh, my God. That's where we are, huh? Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. Well, okay. So once those guys get their $4 billion investment back, then maybe we'll have some normalcy. And I don't know. I don't get why they use the rankings at all. Why they even bother telling us? Because the champion hasn't fought the number one contender in God knows how long. I don't know if they ever have since they've started using the official UFC fighter rankings. This is a real question. Has the number one ranked fighter ever fought a champion based on those rankings alone?
There have been sparse instances of it. Probably even recently, believe it or not.
It's usually the number 8 against number 1. Or
Sure. But I think, in fact, I'll tell you what, I think the women's titles have come closest to staying true to that.
It's the exception, not the rule. Yeah. So they're not really rankings. It's just another metric for the screen for the fans at home to look at. But
yeah.
They're not necessarily doing anything with them. So if they're going to bother doing all these, interim championships or interim titles, whatever we're calling them, you'd think they do a little bit better job, marketing some of the athletes besides Connor or Ronda. But as even, Ronda's last fight, they didn't even mention who she was fighting, just that it's for the title, really. And when she didn't win, they're like, oh.
To your point about Amanda Nunes, she's out doing a lot of publicity, albeit a lot of it's in Brazil.
More power to her if she's able to go down there and harness that star power. In Brazil, they love their champions. They love their fighters. I mean, they love the shit out of Anderson Silva, man. I remember being in Brazil, watching on TV when he broke his leg on, Chris Weidman's on his knee. I mean, it was on TV all night, like it was like we're at war or something. They're at Las Vegas, the hospital over here. The reporters are outside waiting just for any information because they take it that seriously. So
wow.
If she's able to go out there and, work with the, Canal Combachi or, TV Globo or whatever big media outlets are out there, more power to her, make that money. The Brazilians love Brazilian champions. So if she can make that money out there, do it. If she doesn't translate that well in the United States, well, just translate that currency over. She'll be just fine.
Being out in the Bay Area, this may seem somewhat random, but being out in the Bay Area, you ever run into Dave Meltzer?
Actually, I saw him, I think, at an APW show, at the one at the Cow Palace just recently. I think he was there.
Okay. One of the reasons I mentioned Dave Meltzer is that I know that from some of the past podcasts I've heard of your show, that you did watch, as many of us did, this Okada Omega match, which Dave Meltzer gave like something ridiculous, like 6 stars to or something like that. And I think you shared kind of the same view of the match that I did, in that it was entertaining. It was probably better than many matches have been over the last months, years, whatever scale you want to put it on. But I'm not a big fan of false finishes for the sake of false finishes, or flippy doos, as I like to call them, for the sake of flippy doos. I'm more of a fan of like less is more, and if it's done and it's made to be done so that it's important once, I think you get more mileage out of that. Is that similar to your take on it?
To be honest, the crowd was into it, right?
Sure.
Would it translate to, say, something on Monday Night Raw? No. Am I personally more inclined to like a more traditional or a more classic style match? Yeah, absolutely. Calling it a 6-star match, I guess if you were there live or crowd reaction, whatever, that's one thing. But I mean, think of the other matches that were 5-star matches and compare them. And I don't think that designation is necessarily fair. But if that's where wrestling's going, great. I can't do any of that stuff. I think it's awesome. If I could move like that, sure. But I like the storytelling aspect of matches personally. The false finish stuff, if done right, cool. Everybody just kicking out of everybody's finishes just to do it as a formula for every single big match in the independent scene. Not a big fan of it personally, but again, to each their own. Do I think it was a 6-star match? No. But it's a 5-star or it's a 6-star match of that type. Sure, but if you compare it to everything else ever, it's whatever. Great. I hope they would make lots of money. It's cool. I can't do any of that shit. Cool.
But even if you could, why would you want to do it like 17 times to the same concrete floor?
All I know is people pay to see Cirque du Soleil, and that company makes plenty of money. So it's just not the same product in my book. That's all.